I am Dr. Vinita Bhadoria, Associate Professor English, Government College, Behror. In the previous video, I explained 48 lines of this poem, Elegy written in Country Churchyard by Thomas Gray. Now in this video, I explain you 96 lines of this poem. That means 49 to 96 lines. But knowledge to their eyes, her ample pace, rich with spoils of time, did never unroll. Chill penury repeased their noble rays and froze the genial current of the soul. Apple pace is wide and expansive knowledge, rich with the spoils of time, wealth of knowledge and information gathered after years of patience, toil, and labor. That is experience. Unroll, open, penury, poverty, repressed, crushed, froze, crushed, and choked, general current, joyous feeling of their heart. So, in these lines, Gay says that the life of village people are tragic. Waste and frustration of promising persons in the village. The poet gives expression to his intense grief at the fact that many persons endowed with talents and outstanding abilities live on obscure life, unknown and unhonored. No stone tells where they lie. Poverty stands in their way in realizing the best that they possess. They are denied the benefits of education and of accumulated knowledge of mankind stored in books. They remain ignorant throughout their lives. Extreme poverty suppressed and destroys their urge for doing noble deeds. It completely damps their gay spirit and enthusiasm. The result is they fail to realize their talents. They live and die unknown. Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bear. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and wastes its sweetness on the desert air. Purest ray serene, having great purity and brightness about them. Unfathomed, very deep, immeasurable, athah, caves bottom. Here means have, to blush unseen, to bloom without being noted, unknown. This stanza is very important. He says that numerous gems of great beauty remain in the hollows of the ocean and have no opportunity of being seen, praised, or appreciated. That means their talents are unknown for others and they themselves do not know about their talents. Similarly, a very large number of fragrant flowers bloom and wither in desolate lands unseen by any admirer. They have no admirers. Beautiful maidens shy for their beauty blush when then they are looked upon and admired by a stranger. These flowers also blush, but alas. Flowers are compared by villagers, or it's a real metaphor. They have no admirers, no onlookers, and their blushing grace is wasted on the inanimate, heartless air of the deserted spot. In simple words, many gifted persons cannot win fame and admiration for they are not known to the outer world. Many villagers endowed with extraordinary qualities, cannot earn the reputation and appreciation that they richly deserve. This is the tragedy of the rural geniuses. Some village Hampden that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his field withstood. Some mute, inglorious Milton here may rest, some Cromwell guiltless of his country's blood. In the introductory video, I have explained you all these references: Hampden, Cromwell, Milton. Hampden is John Hampden, celebrated English statesman who refused in 1636 to pay the ship money tax levied by Charles I. Milton is John Milton, the great poet of 16th century. Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector of England from 1663 till his death. He was one of the parliamentary leaders. In the Civil War, he became General of the Round Hearts. He gained battle after battle. After the execution of Charles I, he was installed at the head of Commonwealth. In Inglorious Milton, not known poets, unknown talents. Gray illustrated this general statement by giving three particular examples of Hampden, Milton, and Cromwell. He says that the abilities of some eminent persons were equally to be found in some of the unknown villagers as well. These qualities which Hampden and Milton and Cromwell possesses, equally villagers also can have these qualities. Some villagers also have these qualities, but as they know opportunities to show their talents, they remained unknown. In England, in the reign of Charles I, John Hampden bravely stood against the arbitrary taxation and tyranny of the king and thereby became famous. In the village also there might have been some village Hampdens who might have displayed equal courage in the matter of opposing oppressive measures of his tyrant landlords. Again, there might be lying in the obscure graveyard of the village the mortal remains of a poet. Though unknown, he could rival the poet excellence of famous John Milton of English literature, or a man who, though unknown, like the great patriot as Cromwell himself, though he has not stained his hand in shedding the blood of his countrymen, as Cromwell had done by killing Charles I, thus paving his ways to the throne of England. Therefore, these unknown forefathers of the village should not be slighted. Initially, Gray was not inserted these three words in his poetry. Later on, Gray inserted in their place three English names: Hampden, Milton, and Cromwell. These names are from comparatively recent English history. This fact is something certainly worth attention. It marks the transition from classicism to nationalism. In this stanza, Gray shook off the shackles of pseudo classicism. He thought that English historical examples were equal in dignity to those taken from Latin literature. It is an index to a profound change going on in Gray's mind. The applause of listing senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, the scatter plenty over a smiling land, and read their history in a nation's eyes. Their lot forbade nor circumscribed alone their growing virtues, but their crimes confined, for wait through slaughter to a throne, and shut the gates of mercy on mankind. The struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenious shame, or heap the shrine of luxury and pride with incense kindled at the amuse's flame. I read these three stanzas because these are interconnected, so they have been taken together for the purpose of explanation. I can explain you one after another, continue in continuation. Applause is fame, despise to disregard, plenty, richness, circumscribe, limit or restrict, crimes, evils, vices, confined, limited, struggling, fighting hard, pain, conscious truth which was not known to them, the blush, shyness, ingenious, free and frank, shrine of luxury and pride of those people who were proud and live in luxury life. With incense offerings, kindled, burnt, muses flame, poetic inspiration. Heat together, flame is again poetic inspiration. In these lines, Gray speaks of the ill fate of the simple villagers lying dead. They could not have any opportunity to rise the immense because they were poor and the circumstances did not favor them. They were doomed to an obscure destiny. Their fate did not allow them to become members of parliament or occupy other high posts. Hence, they could not display their orations. They did not find any occasion to shine in political field. There was no occasion for them to defy the threats of tyrants and to abolish operations. They could not get chance to compel the interest of the people, and thus they could not get honor and self-satisfaction from their conduct and looks. Their poverty and limited resources are not only checked the growth of their virtues but also prevented them from committing crimes which are very common among men of the high positions. Ambitious people do mean act to achieve their ends. They stoop to murder and bloodshed to occupy the throne. They stifle their conscience. They lose all sense of shame and self-respect. They means rich people. They they may get their patronage. The poor villagers were prevented to do such mean acts for getting high posts. They did not lose their feelings for truth and honesty. They were not mean flatterers of great means. So we can say in the end of these three stanzas that one can obscure high post or one can get rich after doing so many crimes, so many evil things in his life, in their life, then they get that position, which villagers did not get because they are true and honest. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray along the cool, sequestered vale of life. They kept the noiseless tenor of their way. Far at a great distance, madding, busy, the madding crowd, the thick gathering of the people who were fanatic like mad person. Ignoble low, strife, quarrels, झगड़े, sober wishes, cool here used for gentle, vale of life, valley of life. Life has been compared with a valley which is full of peace. शांतिपूर्ण घाटी के अकॉर्डिंग, बिल्कुल शांत घाटी की तरह. They spent noiseless, without any noise. Tenor, course of life, journey of life. In these lines, poet says that the poor people of the village were completely neglected. They had great potentiality to rise, but circumstances did not favor them. They were forced to lead an obscure life, unknown life. In spite of all this, the poet feels that they were better than the city people and they need not feel grieved for their poor condition. Here, the poet compares the life of the poor people with that of the urban people and establishes their superiority over the sophisticated urban people. The cities are overpopulated, overcrowded. Crowds of the innumerable people live in cities, but they have no fellow feelings. They are isolated. They breathlessly run after their wishes and desires. On the other hand, villagers lived far away from city atmosphere. They were free from hustle and bustle of crowds, which acted madly or in a frenzied way. They were not the slave of their desires. They lived in calm and peaceful atmosphere. They were free from all sorts of physical temptations. They enjoyed peace of mind and soul. Thus, their way of living was free from unnecessary struggle and tension as was found in the life of sophisticated urban society. From the madding crowd becomes the title of one of the famous novel of Hardy, Madding Acting Madly Frenzied. Yet even these bones from insult to protect, some frail memories still erected high, with uncouth rhymes and shapeless sculpture deck it, implores the passing tribute of a sigh. These bones, the bones of the villagers, from insult to protect in order to save them from oblivion, and the insult in that nobody has written any lines upon their tombs. Frail memories, some weak kind of memorials, as opposed to trophies raised over the tombs of the rich, still erected near and standing uncouth rhymes, verses composed by country poet, illiterate persons. In these lines, Gray feel pity on the poor memorials of the rustics, villagers. The poor graves of the villagers have no grand memorials erected. There are majestic monuments of rich people quite near their graves. For the poor also there are erected some memorials, but they are poor in kind. They have no sculpture significance and are erected near their graves. The engraving over them have no sculpture, beauty, and are rough and ugly. The lines engraved on these memorials were composed by some illiterate person. These simple graves of the villagers ask earnestly for the sympathy of the passer-by. Uncouth rhymes. Uncouth rhymes are the crude verses which are not very refined. For thee who mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines their artless tale relate. If chance by lonely contemplation led, some kinder spirit shall inquire thy fate. Spruce scattered. Unhonored dead, the dead people who are the dead people of the village. In these lines, poet describes the usefulness of the lines engraved on the graves of the poor rustics. The lines of the Bible engraved on the graves of the poor villagers teach the other villagers not to fear death. There is no need to fear death. These are the lines explains written on the grave. The poet says that no ornamental trophies are raised over the poor rustics, only there are simple and ordinary memorials for them. Over their tombs, their names are years inscribed. These were written by uneducated persons. That is why they are wrongly spelt. There are no long epitaphs on their tombs as are found on those of the rich. Yet there are on their tombs many beautiful sentences from the Bible, such as I love them that love me, blessed are they that keep my ways, etc. These small sayings are scattered over their tombs. They give spiritual consolation to the villagers. They inspire the people to them to meet death cheerfully. For who to dumb forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever resigned, left the warm presence of the cheerful day, nor cast one lingering look behind. Prey is given over as a victim, shikar, pleasing anxious being, life full of pleasure and anxieties, present enclosure, cheerful day, happy days of their life. In these lines, poet says that not only the rich but the poorest of the poor also desires to be remembered after death. This is the fact. Life, despite its worries, poverty, and attendant miseries, is yet so sweet and pleasant that nobody, however poor and humble he might be, willingly leaves the world. People know that death is a dark world where everything is forgotten. Therefore, they are reluctant to leave this world, which by contrast is warm, pleasant, and blissful. So, at the time of death, everyone looks back on pleasant scenes of life, pleasant memories of their life, and most unwillingly leaves the world, casting all the while an eager and delaying look upon the world, which he perforce leaves behind. His body is literally dragged towards death, but his soul eagerly looks backward the memories of his physical life, the scenes, the visuals of his physical life. On some fond breast, the parting soul rallies. Some pious drops of the closing eye requires. Even from the tomb, the voice of nature cries. Even in our ashes, lift their wanted fires. Fond breast of some loving friend. Parting soul, the person who is going to die. Relies, depends upon. Pious drops, tears. Closing eye, the person who is dying. Wanted, accustomed. In these lines, the poet conveys the idea that dying man rallies some loving friend. He needs the tears of affection from them, that he wants that his friend and acquaintance or relative, whoever there may be, may shed tears when he is departing from this world. He wants his memory to remain here, and it is but natural. Not only this, when after his death all is dust and ashes, the natural desire that one should be remembered after death seems to be crying, and the fire that was accustomed to be in those ashes, that is, his soul finds expression in the inscriptions on the tombs. For thee, who mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines their artless tale relate, if chance by lonely contemplation late, some kinder spirit shall inquire thy fate. For for the sake of the country gentlemen, for the sake of the villagers, unmindful, without caring for, carelessly. Unhonored death, the ordinary simple country gentlemen who are lying buried in their graves, the villagers, artless, simple tales, story of their life, relate, narrate, In these lines, the poet says that he has described in a simple, homely manner the life story of the simple farmers who are lying buried in their graves without achieving honor or fame in their life. He thinks that after death, when he too would be buried in his grave, some gentleman of a contemplative frame of mind might pass that way and try to know about the life and achievement of the poet buried in the grave. I have explained you 24 paragraphs and 96 lines of the poem in two videos. In next video, I will try to complete this poem. Thank you very much.